What's going on, everyone? Welcome into the Chiefs Zone podcast. My name is Farzin Vasugian. It is a Thursday edition of the Chiefs Zone. Hope you guys are enjoying your week as we are getting close to the weekend. Another day of Chiefs training camp. Hey, why not? Let's talk some more Chiefs football here as the Chiefs concluded their third day of practice over in St. Joe, and I had a chance to go there again. Second day in a row I've been to Chiefs training camp and have some thoughts as well, and other thoughts as we get closer and closer to our first preseason game, which, by the way, fun fact, today is the last Thursday of no football until February. I mean, let's give air horns for that. Hell yeah. No more waiting. Football season is coming up very soon. If you guys want to go and catch any of the action in person, NFL, college football, whatever it is, go to SeatGeek and get your tickets from there. That's where I go for all of my sports ticketing needs. KU, K-State, Mizzou, Chiefs, whoever your NFL or college team is. You want to check them out in person? Go to SeatGeek, get your tickets there, and new customers can use my promo code FARZIN and save $20 off their first purchase from SeatGeek. Go to SeatGeek.com, pick your tickets, and at checkout, enter my promo code FARZIN if you're a new SeatGeek customer and get $20 off your first order from SeatGeek. All right, on today's podcast, want to get into day 3 of Chiefs training camp and really just the culmination of the last 3 days and just what we've seen so far from the Chiefs, positives, negatives, and what does it all mean so far? It is practice after all. You can only put so much stock into these. And by the way, mind you, the Chiefs are doing it without the pads at the moment. The pads come on Sunday. So what can we realistically take away from the Chiefs in the first 3 days of training camp, and what can we look forward to in the days to come? Tomorrow, the Chiefs will practice. That practice expected to start at 9:15. And by the way, just a heads up, because the storm's going on right now, there's not going to be a very long podcast, but for those of you in the Kansas City area or making plans to go to St. Joe, just be prepared. I know tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, I believe tomorrow's practice is sold out, which is not a surprise because it is the first weekend practice since the Chiefs have started training camp. And unfortunately, it might not be open to the public. The Chiefs very well could have practice indoors tomorrow. So if you're making plans to go out there tomorrow morning, just keep an eye on the weather, because unfortunately Mother Nature might have other plans, but hopefully you guys can make it out on Sunday, because Saturday there will not be practice. That will be the team's day off. Before I get into Chiefs football, I have to bring this up because this news broke about 20 or so minutes ago before we started the live stream here. And you know, some jokes just write themselves. They really do. And there are some organizations in football that just don't get it. I mean, they always get it wrong. There's you can hear the thunder in the background there. Some organizations just don't know what they're doing. They really have no idea what they're doing. And I'm talking specifically about the one and only, the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, congratulations to the Las Vegas Raiders. Another signing that's turned into a bust. They released Christian Wilkins. Remember this signing from last offseason? This was that's not the right picture on your guys' end there. There we go. Why is it not showing up? There we go. Remember Christian Wilkins? He was supposed to be, the guy to help out the Raiders and their defense and all of that. This is from Ari Marav of the 33rd team. They are releasing Christian Wilkins after just 1 year on the team. They signed him to a massive 4-year deal to play alongside Max Crosby on that defensive line. Remember that? Remember last year when Chris Jones, he was not signed yet, but eventually they got him. The Chiefs got him. There were a couple of teams that really wanted Chris Jones. The Raiders were one of them. And if you need any evidence for that, just look what they did, because shortly once free agency opened up, they immediately went and signed Christian Wilkins. I think before, listen, free agency really honestly starts before the official new league year. But as soon as Chris Jones re-signed with the Chiefs, the Raiders went and signed Christian Wilkins to that big deal. He was the backup. He was the side chick in case the main chick wasn't working out. And Chris Jones said, nah, I'm staying in Kansas City. So what do the Raiders do? They go to their backup plan, Christian Wilkins, and they cut him after a year. Oh, boy. I mean, sure, call it bad luck, but apparently they're voiding the guaranteed deal because of the way he's handled his rehab with his foot injury, and he's filed for grievance. That's going to be a lot of fun. Whew, have fun with that one. I mean, look, remember when they traded Khalil Mack and got a bunch of draft picks? I think they had 5 first-round draft picks in the span of 2 years. Dude, I don't care if you are the reigning Super Bowl champions or if you're the worst team in the NFL. Every NFL team would love to have 5 first-round draft picks in the span of 2 years. And the Raiders couldn't do jack shit with any of them. The biggest one was supposed to be Henry Ruggs, and they cut him after what he did off the field. And then, they make moves like this. And listen, I've already mentioned this with the Raiders. I do think the Raiders have the right head coach in place. I don't know about the quarterback position. I mean, Geno Smith has been solid the past couple of years, but he's still Geno Smith. I mean, this is, if your goal is mediocrity, be around a 500 football team, Geno Smith's going to get you that. Geno Smith is going to get you that. But the guys they bring in who are supposed to help out, like Henry Ruggs, Antonio Pierce as the head coach. Remember, he was supposed to be the savior. Max Crosby was endorsing that guy to the max. Kept saying, I will not play for any other coach. He wanted it to be AP. And then they go and add Wilkins to that defensive line. Nope, doesn't work. Sorry, Raiders. That is your franchise in a nutshell. That is the Raiders. I mean, that's just pathetic. It's embarrassing. Doesn't matter if it's Al Davis, Mark Davis, if Tom Brady's part of the ownership group. That franchise just does not get it. That's why I keep saying with the Raiders, and I will continue to say it, when it comes to the Raiders and any kind of success that they could potentially have, I'll believe it when I see it. Because until then, I don't believe it. I got to see it first. All right. Let's get into some Chiefs football, shall we? Obviously, the Chiefs just practiced for the 3rd day in a row, concluded that. Some more positives to come out of this one. I'll start with the offensive line, because that, once again, is the biggest talking point from everyone here in Kansas City, with Josh Simmons being the first-round draft pick and a lot of hype behind him coming off of his injury, looking really good so far. It does not look like a guy who's coming off an injury, especially with the speed he's playing at. And then you have right now Jalen Moore, who is filling in at right tackle for Joan Taylor. And mentioned Joan Taylor, he's currently on PUP. You also have Kingsley Suamata-Ia. He has shifted from left tackle to left guard, played a little bit of left guard last year. So there are a lot of eyes on him and seeing how he'll do in the preseason, which kind of leads me to my next point. And I'll mention the preseason a few times because, we see the practices, we see the highlights. There's only so much you can really take from these, especially since they're without pads right now. But even with the pads, there's only so much stock you can put into these highlights here in training camp. Let me start with Josh Simmons. Josh Simmons has looked really good so far, in my opinion. Has he had some bad snaps? Yeah, he has. I mean, that's what a rookie's going to go through, every single rookie. But man, they're challenging him. He's going up against Karlaftis. You're definitely going to learn and grow pretty quickly going up against Karlaftis. He's going up against Mike Dana. He's also been going up against Chris Jones for a few snaps. We all know the Chiefs love to line up Chris Jones everywhere across that defensive line. A gap, B gap, C gap. I mean, the Chiefs will line him up wherever they want to line him up on that D-line. I know Chris Jones tried to play some DN. I think it was in 2021. Just didn't work out. When he moved back to his natural position, played much better. But still, he'll come through for you from the edge. And Chris Jones, he's gone up against Josh Simmons a couple of times. There was one where Chris Jones beat Josh Simmons, but that was because Patrick Mahomes was able, and Patrick Mahomes is one of the best, really, the best in the NFL at this, and that is getting defensive linemen to jump and getting a free play, which, by the way, I know this big deal about, how many interceptions Mahomes has had given back off penalties. Yeah, a lot of them are free plays, but a lot of people don't want to do the research on that. I know. Facts don't really register with some people, but I always say facts over feelings. Regardless, neither here nor there. Josh Simmons has been getting challenged by Chris Jones. And in that one play when Patrick Mahomes was able to get Chris Jones a jump, actually second day in a row, Mahomes has been able to get Chris Jones a jump. And Josh Simmons has been able to hold his own so far. If you're an offensive tackle or rookie offensive tackle, the best group of guys to go up against are the guys that Kansas City has. George Karlaftis, Mike Dana, Charles Omenihu, Chris Jones. Those are the guys that you can learn from. And Chris Jones is not an edge guy, but he'll line up on the edge sometimes. That battle at the line of scrimmage between Simmons and Jones, that's only going to make it's going to make both of those guys better. But we're not looking for Chris Jones to be better. That's not what anyone cares about. People want to see Josh Simmons grow and flourish. That's what the Chiefs desperately need right now. That's why they drafted him at left tackle. I like what I'm seeing from Kingsley Suamataia at that left guard position. Again, it's only practice. You can only take so much from it. Him and Omar Norman-Lott have been going at it. Omar Norman-Lott has been playing a lot with the ones. And I think that's a very good sign. This is someone that had some success in college. And I know the knock on him is the amount of playing time and snaps he had as a volunteer. I get that, but he had a lot of success when he was on the field. Maybe if he played more snaps, he would have been a first-round draft pick. I don't know. But he ended up falling to Kansas City, and this is a huge reason why some people feel like the Chiefs had one of the best drafts. We obviously won't know until we see these guys put on the pads, put on the helmet, and start playing real games in September. But until then, from now until then, we still have some things to go over here. And keep in mind, the Chiefs, 52 days away from that first game in Brazil against the Chargers. And a guy like Kingsley Suamataia, that's someone who's going to receive a lot of attention in the next few weeks in camp as it continues to progress and in preseason games. I think he's going to be better at guard. I've gone over it many times, so I'm not going to bore you with that all over again. And by the way, if you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, tomorrow, 3 p.m. Central Time is the Red Friday Q&A live chat. Come back here on Facebook, YouTube. This is not going to be on the podcast page, only on Facebook and YouTube. We'll also be live on Instagram as well, but I won't be able to put the Instagram questions up on the screen. So from anyone watching on IG Live, feel free to ask your questions. Just be patient there, but we'll go over every single question as the live stream goes on. So it'll be our first Red Friday Q&A live chat of the season. Just a reminder for tomorrow for all of you. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and also following on Facebook and Instagram as well. But to go back to what I was saying about the offensive line, you have Jalen Moore, who's looked pretty good for the most part. Has had a few hiccups at the right tackle position. But hey, that's why you're in training camp right now to learn here. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Joan Taylor is on a short leash right now. And I think a lot of you guys like hearing that. I wrote a post about this earlier today. You guys love to hear that kind of thing. Listen, I'm not rooting for Joan Taylor to fail. I mean, he's your right tackle. This guy's supposed to be protecting Patrick Mahomes. He's making a shit ton of money. So he has to thrive. He has to succeed. You want that. And I said this the other day, and I'll say it again because I think it's worth repeating here. This is a contract year for Joan Taylor. Now, that sounds odd to say because he's got 2 years left on his deal. But let's be honest here. We're not stupid. The Chiefs are not stupid. Joan Taylor is not stupid. Joan Taylor's agent is not stupid. Everyone knows that Joan Taylor has some inconsistencies with the Chiefs. And on that 4-year deal that Joan Taylor signed, the Chiefs can easily get out of that and have less dead money next offseason. So for Joan Taylor, even if he has a great season, which I'm not betting on, I think Joan Taylor knows this could be very well his final season with the Chiefs, and that he needs to have a great season. Otherwise, he's not going to be able to get another big deal elsewhere. I don't think the Chiefs have a lot of interest in bringing him back unless he absolutely balls out and plays damn near perfect this year. Even then, I think the Chiefs would still like to try to get out of that contract anyway. So listen, what do they say about contract years? Contract years are undefeated. So hopefully he plays well. If not, Kansas City has Jaylen Moore on speed dial. So as far as I'm concerned, when you look at the Chiefs and what they have on that offensive line depth, Jaylen Moore was the biggest offseason free agent signing, in my opinion, because this is somebody who is going to be an insurance policy in case either tackle struggles. I don't think a lot of people have any concerns about Josh Simmons. There are some, let's just say they're being cautious with the right tackle position, and rightfully so. Everyone knows that's been a weak spot. Both positions have been a weak spot the last couple of years. That's why they drafted Josh Simmons. That's why they signed Jaylen Moore. They were hoping Joan Taylor would have been that guy a few years ago, and that has not panned out well. That's why they drafted Wanya Morris. He hasn't done a good job. He's switching from left tackle to right tackle now. There's been some shifting on the offensive line. Kingsley from left tackle to left guard. Wanya Morris from left tackle to right tackle. Jaylen Moore has been going from left tackle to right tackle. I don't know how many people were expecting to see more as the team's starting right tackle to open up camp, but at the same time, nobody thought that Joan Taylor would have a knee injury to start training camp. So that certainly caught a lot of people by surprise here. But no one in Kansas City is really losing sleep over this. I think the ideal lineup for the tackle positions at left tackle and right tackle is Simmons at left and Moore at right. That's what a lot of people want. So if you're the Kansas City Chiefs, Joan Taylor is probably your preferred right tackle, especially given the money that he's making. But doesn't matter how much money you're making if you're struggling. You can't let your franchise quarterback, who's arguably the best quarterback in the NFL, keep getting pressured and keep getting beat by edge rushers. If that's going to be an issue, the Chiefs will pull the plug on Taylor and put Moore in there pretty quick. We saw them make those changes last year in week 2 against the Bengals. They took Kingsley Suamataia out. They put Wanya Morris there. I think Wanya Morris struggled in that Raiders game. They pulled him out. They shifted Joe Thuney to left tackle, and they put Mike Caliendo at left guard. And I thought it was great for the regular season. No problem. I think it's the postseason where those two struggled at those two positions there. Caliendo being a new starting left guard and Thuney being the new left tackle for the Chiefs. Chris says, do you think they will keep Steel? I assume you mean Carson Steel. He's the only Steel on the team. Let me ask that question by asking another question. Do you think the Chiefs have 4 running backs or 5? Because they're keeping Pacheco, they're keeping Kareem Hunt, they're gonna keep Rashied Smith. Rashied Smith, we haven't seen a lot of highlights from him, but from what we have seen of Rashied Smith, he's showing off that speed, man. And I mentioned this well before he was drafted. I put together a list of the 5 best wide receivers and the 5 best running backs in terms of their 40 time from the scouting combine, excuse me. Rashied Smith was 3rd on that list, and the Chiefs got him. So you know he possesses great speed, and that's what he brings to Kansas City, and that's what Kansas City wants. So those 3 guys, I think they're in. And obviously, we'll see what happens the rest of the remainder of the 5 weeks before the Chiefs play the Chargers in Brazil. because injuries can occur. Maybe someone gets traded. You never know. Elijah Mitchell is on this team. That's who the Chiefs signed. And by the way, Pacheco has 1 year left on his rookie deal. Hunt re-signed on a 1 year deal, and Mitchell joined on a 1 year deal. So that's something to just be aware of. Now, to answer the question specifically, is Carson Steel going to be part of the team? If you're going to have 4 running backs and those 4 are Pacheco, Hunt, Smith, and number 4 is, in my opinion, going to be between Elijah Mitchell and Carson Steel. I know Elijah Young is part of the running back depth right now. I don't really anticipate him to be a surprise in preseason games. We'll see. But I do think that 4th spot, if the Chiefs choose to keep 4, is going to be between Mitchell and Steel. I don't know, man. I mean, Steel was the preseason hero last year, but in the regular season, a whole different story. He had a few fumbles. Ball security was definitely an issue with Carson Steel last year. And I think if he has another big preseason, then yeah, I think he makes it harder on the Chiefs, and they have to revisit Carson Steel and his roster situation and say, look, do we give this guy a second chance? Because he did look good last year. And they had to rely on him early because Clyde Edwards-Helaire was not available due to mental health struggles. Isaiah Pacheco got hurt very early in the season. So Carson Steel was relied and used pretty early in the season, earlier than they might have anticipated. And that's where you saw, a different version of Carson Steel. You had the preseason Carson Steel and the regular season Carson Steel. Robert says Coach Carroll didn't even seem phased at the podium when he was asked about it. He's already moved on. I mean, listen, that's every coach. I remember John Gruden. Who was the wide receiver that they got rid of? Antonio Brown. Remember how that was supposed to go down? He said that he at least got to beat Antonio Brown, but there was one player he didn't get a chance to meet, or maybe it was Khalil Mack he never met. I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, listen, you got to move on, especially if you're the Raiders. You just know that's the standard with the Raiders franchise. That's the way things go there. Let's go to the wide receiver position. We covered a lot of offensive line here. That's another area the Chiefs are keeping a close eye on, because you had the issue with the offensive line last year. The year before was the wide receivers. The Chiefs felt like they did enough to put together a better group of wide receivers last year, and they did. Unfortunately, there were so many injuries that took place with Hollywood Brown, Rashied Rice, Juju Smith-Schuster, Sky Moore. I mean, not that anyone had any high hopes for Sky Moore, but someone on your depth that you were hoping would do something, and he unfortunately got hurt. You had a lot of guys who got hurt last year. That's why they got DeAndre Hopkins midseason. I mean, you look at the wide receiver group the Chiefs have right now. Xavier Worthy, and I'll say this, little bit of a concern here. Worthy's had a couple of drops in camp. He had one today and one yesterday. Hollywood Brown, he and Mahomes are picking up from where they left off. Last year in OTAs and in training camp, that Mahomes to Hollywood connection was happening quite a lot. You saw a lot of passes between from Mahomes to Hollywood. Rashied Rice, obviously, he had that nice little emergence before his injury. He's been involved quite a lot with the Chiefs offense in camp as well, which is to no one's surprise. Here's who's definitely surprised me in camp. And I thought this was a good draft pick when it happened, but I didn't have a lot of expectations for this player, and that's Jaylen Royals, drafted in the 4th round. Because at the time, we weren't quite sure what was going to happen with Rashied Rice and his suspension. Obviously, the whole legal situation, that case has been closed. They've given the consequences to Rice, and we're anticipating a suspension to come at some point. We just don't know when exactly and how many games. And I think because of that, that's certainly drawn more attention to Jaylen Royals. And he's looked really good in training camp so far. 7-on-7, 11-on-11. Jaylen Royals has been building a rapport with Patrick Mahomes these last few days in camp. That to me has been the most significant surprise. One player who's low on the depth chart that a lot of people didn't really know what to expect from is Taequon Thornton. Taequon Thornton got involved with Mahomes quite a bit in training camp, or OTAs rather, excuse me. And in OTAs, we've seen Mahomes and Thornton connect. Thornton's made a couple of flashy plays in camp so far. Again, it's just camp. You can only take so much from practice, especially without the pads. But I'm telling you right now, if there are two players from the wide receiver group I'm very eager to see, it'd be Jaylen Royals and Taequon Thornton. Taequon Thornton had the third fastest 40 time in the 2022 NFL scouting combine. Went to the Patriots. I mean, listen, what worked in New England these last 2 or 3 years? Nothing worked out. So I'm not going to hold that against Taequon Thornton. I think in terms of his skill set, he's in a far better place where his skill set will be used in a better way. He's in a scheme that 100% fits what he's capable of doing. I'm eager to see what Taequon Thornton's going to do this preseason, as well as Jaylen Royals. I don't know if those two guys are going to play with Patrick Mahomes much in the first preseason game when they play the Cardinals. The second preseason game in Seattle, I think that's when you're going to see more of the starters. And I think that's when Andy Reid will try to shake the lineup up a little bit. So that way, some of the 2s and 3s on the wide receiver depth chart can have an opportunity to play with Mahomes. Guys like Jaylen Royals, Taequon Thornton, Nico Remigio, because I think those guys need that with Patrick Mahomes. So I'm excited to see that second preseason game because obviously the back when it was 4 preseason games, that third preseason game served as the big dress rehearsal where you would see the starters play the entire first half and then they would play the first drive of the second half. Then they would yank all the starters and you would really not see them at all in the fourth game. Okay, I remember years further back, you would see the starters play just a couple of snaps in the fourth game, which was kind of weird to me. But that's just the way coaches did it in the past. And then obviously it changed over time. Now you only have 3 preseason games. And that second game kind of does serve as the dress rehearsal. Maybe not to the point where the starters play in the second half like they did in the third game in the four-game preseason style. But that's what I'm curious to see the most. That game against Seattle is a preseason game that I'm interested in seeing the most. I think that's when guys who are on the 2s and the 3s, even a guy like Jason Brownlee or Elijah Badger. I know Badger, he was an undrafted free agent. That was one that some Chiefs fans were excited for. Those are the players that might get a chance to play with Mahomes a little more in that second preseason game. Well, Chris, happy birthday, and I appreciate you spending time watching this podcast here. Enjoy your birthday. Yeah, Layla, we're all excited for football season. We're getting closer and closer here. And by the way, for those of you who are just tuning into the live stream, a reminder: tomorrow, 3:00 Central Time, the Red Friday Q&A live chat is back. Yes, it is indeed back. So if you guys are going to be around on your computer, tablet, phone, however you take in the live streams, keep in mind it's not going to be a podcast. So this won't be on Apple, Spotify, or any of those other places. But we'll be on Facebook, we'll be on YouTube, we'll be on Instagram. Ask your questions on there, and we'll do the Q&A live chat then. So bring your questions, because that is how the Red Friday Q&A live chat works. Otherwise, it won't operate as well. So definitely going to need your participation in that tomorrow. Again, 3 p.m. Central Time. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go back to the Chiefs depth chart here. Just going over my notes. What over the offensive line? What over the wide receivers? The defense. Because right now, when you're looking at the secondary, I think that's a good place to start. Jaden Hicks is moving into a new role. Brian Cook, he's been around for 3 seasons now. There's going to be his 4th year. Mike Edwards is a veteran returning to Kansas City. Shamari Conrad, I think, is an underrated part of this secondary. He's not great, but I think he does some good things for your defense and plays a lot of different spots in that secondary for you. Josh Williams, in my opinion, was a very underrated cornerback his rookie season. And I think he's taken a couple of steps back the last couple of years. I'd like to see Josh Williams try to regain himself as a better cornerback this season. And again, you have Christian Fulton, who's currently on PUP because of the knee injury. And I know that's been kind of his history in the NFL. But I think the Chiefs secondary is looking really good. And it's going to help with that defensive line this year being better. They were 18th in sacks. They had 18 fewer sacks from the year before when they were second in the league with 57. But I think Chris Jones is going to have a better year. I think George Karlaftis, he's still growing and growing. Mike Pennell coming back, I think, is very huge and an underrated move, in my opinion. Mike Dana is a piece who was really good a couple of years ago. Not as big last year, but signed a 3-year, very team-friendly deal. You still have FAU. I don't know if you could maybe trade him for another player or a draft pick at this point. He just hasn't lived up to expectations, if we're just being honest here. Omar Norman, I mentioned earlier, he's been playing a lot with the starters. He and Kingsley Suamataia have been going at it in training camp. That's been a fun battle to watch. Ashton Gelati, Charles Omenihu. You have Jerry Tillery from Minnesota, who's on this defensive line. Also spent some time with the Raiders. The defensive line depth is very interesting to me. And what is the defensive line going to look like? I think your starters are going to be Karlaftis, Jones, Pennell, and Omenihu. I think Omenihu will start opposite of Karlaftis and will play instead of Dana. But regardless, I think Omenihu and Dana will rotate a lot. Tillery, I think, will be part of your depth. Omar Norman definitely going to be part of your depth. Ashton Gelati for sure at the defensive end position. Does FAU make the Chiefs 53-man roster this year? We got to have a conversation about that. What is the realistic expectation from FAU? Because when he got drafted, it was in Kansas City at Union Station. They had fireworks. They had the touchdown song when he got picked. And obviously it was a big deal because he's a local kid from Kansas City, went to K-State, a nearby college, and came back to the area to play for the Chiefs. He mentioned he grew up watching Matt Castle play. That was the era he grew up in. Not really the best era, but hey, you can't really control that sometimes. But when you look at this Chiefs team right now, the defensive line has to play better. And listen, I think the defense was still good last year. I think they took a step back from the year before, which really helped dig this team out of some sticky situations given the offensive woes and the drops that were taking place in 2023. And I want to bring that up in a moment here. But this defensive line, listen, we all celebrate touchdowns. I'm not going to lie. I've learned to really appreciate defense a lot more under Steve Spagnuolo. Man, I go crazy. I've always been the type of football fan that goes crazy over defensive plays than offensive plays, because when you make a play on defense, you prevent the offense from scoring, essentially. I remember my high school, they were playing in the state championship game. And at halftime, and I was filming the game and also filmed the halftime speech and whatnot. And the coach was looking at the players and having them repeat after him, saying, if they don't score, they don't win. And the players kept repeating it back. If they don't score, they don't win. You go out there and you get a sack on third down, you essentially force a fourth and long. You get a sack on second down, you could possibly force a third and long, depending what happens on first down. That sack number does need to go up for Kansas City. And like I said, 18th in the NFL in sacks last year. They had 18 fewer sacks from the season before. That's gotta improve. When you look at the Chiefs last year and how many sacks they had total, 39. That needs to improve. That's not, I mean, I was about to say that's not terrible. It's not terrible, but it could be a lot better. They had 57 the year before. And again, they ranked 18th in sacks last year. But the Chiefs were one of the best in the NFL in pressuring quarterbacks. The Chiefs were always just a half second late in these situations. And I think secondary played a role in that, not being able to cover as well. Jalen Watson, who I mentioned has been getting picked on a lot in training camp so far in these 3 days. And listen, it's kind of a struggle for him because he's going up against a lot of speedsters at the wide receiver position. I mean, playing defensive back in the NFL is not easy. I've heard scouts say in the past, other than the quarterback position, the toughest position to play from college to the NFL is secondary, specifically cornerback. Because there are a lot of things you just have to be aware of. You don't know where the wide receiver or tight ends are going to go. You have to be ready for them to go at all directions. And as soon as they make certain moves, you have to decide, are they faking that direction? Is that where they're really going? And sometimes cornerbacks spike the bait, and that's where you see the great quarterbacks and great receivers and those who have a great connection be able to thrive in those situations. And Jalen Moore has certainly had struggles with that in camp. So I'm curious to see what this defensive line is going to look like, because if this defensive line can revert back to 2023, I think the secondary is going to be really good. You know, this Chiefs team is going to be great against the run. I mean, who did the Chiefs lose at the defensive line? They lost Rashied Rice. That's a massive loss. And that is a big gain for the Carolina Panthers. I know Derek Nottie had some flashes against the run, but he's replaceable. Mike Pennell coming back is huge. Drafting Omar Norman-Lott is pretty big for the Chiefs. So if you're Kansas City, you know this defensive line and the linebackers, they're going to be good against the run. I can't recall the last time they gave up a 100-yard rusher to a running back. The last 100-yard rusher against the Chiefs was Lamar Jackson in week 1 of last year. The one where Isaiah Likely's toe was out of bounds, that game. But in terms of the last 100-yard rusher by a running back against the Chiefs, I mean, you've got to go back a bit. Wasn't in 2024. Let me see. I don't think Christian McCaffrey was shut down in that Super Bowl, wasn't he? Okay, maybe not shut down, but he wasn't able to go off. He had 22 carries for 80 yards. That's not great. Not good at all, really. Less than 4 yards a carry, almost 3.5 yards per carry. Against Baltimore, did anyone run for 100 yards in that game? No, not even Lamar Jackson. And I think they had the number 1 rushing team that year. I know the Bills did not have a big play over 18 yards when the Chiefs played them in Buffalo last year. No. Against Miami, nothing went Miami's way in that game. So I don't think the Chiefs gave up 100 yards rushing in that one. No, they didn't. And that backup game against the Chargers, where the Chiefs won 13-12. That's not a score you see often. Easton Stick he scrambled for 77 yards. Okay, I mean, not a running back, but still not 100 yards. I don't think Joe Mixon from the Bengals got 100 yards, did he? No, he got 65 yards off 21 carries in that game. Against the Raiders when they lost on Christmas, I think that's the last time. Yep. Zamir White, the last running back to rush for 100 yards on the Chiefs was Zamir White, 22 carries for 145 yards. The last quarterback to win at Arrowhead was of the visiting team was Aiden O'Connell. Aiden O'Connell is the last quarterback to beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead. And Zamir White is the last NFL running back to rush for 100+ yards on the Chiefs. Hey, I mean, at least the Raiders have something to celebrate, I suppose. Chris says you're losing so much weight, I almost didn't see you there. Chris, are you saying I used to be fat? You calling me a former fat ass or something? If you are, I mean, you're right. You certainly wouldn't be wrong about any of that. Yes, I'm down. I'm down 35 pounds. Okay, no one's supposed to notice. That's why Taste Test Tuesday is on hiatus. You guys have been asking about that recently, by the way. I'm glad I'm glad people miss it. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. But no, I appreciate the kind compliment, Chris. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a fun journey, nonetheless. In fact, I'm gonna go hit the gym after this podcast is over, which is gonna be very soon. Before we wrap up here, I do want to remind you guys of the big event coming up this year, and that is the Duran Cherry Watch Party to start off the Chiefs season. That is going to take place, of course, in week 1, September the 5th at 6 p.m. at Holiday Distillery in Weston, Missouri. You want to rub elbows with some Chiefs alums, such as Chiefs Hall of Famer Duran Cherry, part of the Duran Cherry Foundation. The Game Day Give Back Watch Party going to be taking place September the 5th. Happy to announce I'm a proud sponsor of that event. So if you guys want to have an opportunity to watch football with Duran Cherry and some other Chiefs alums, click the link right here in the live stream here. That is where you can buy your tickets. Again, the Game Day Give Back Watch Party. You can watch some football with Duran Cherry and some other Chiefs, former Chiefs, and I'm sure they'll start announcing the guest list very soon. You guys can hang out with them and enjoy watching the first game of Kansas City's season at Holiday Distillery in Western Missouri. All right, before we get out of here, this has been a tough week for entertainment history here. We lost Azie Osborne earlier this week, a guy who obviously one of the icons in the music industry. And I'll say this, some of you guys know this about me. I used to be the stadium DJ for the Kansas City Royals. I was actually the backup DJ, but the main DJ, he missed a lot of time here and there. He had a lot going on. And so I had an opportunity to fill in a lot. And I'll tell you, that was honestly the most fun job I ever had. Loved it. Did it for 4.5 seasons. And I'll tell you right now, I was terrible at it my first year. That off season, I spent a lot of time paying attention to music. I mean, listen, I never thought much of music other than, listening to it when I'm chilling, working out at the gym, whatnot. But man, I had a much better appreciation for music working that job for the Royals. And one of the traditions we had at Kauffman Stadium, whenever all 3 bases were loaded, we would play Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne, where he goes, "All aboard!" It has that nice epic laugh there. And it is one of the most epic songs. And then we played the remix after that laugh there. So me personally, having played that song so many times at Kauffman Stadium, I always think of that song, Crazy Train, by Ozzy Osbourne. Sad story. Rest in peace, Ozzy. The other big news from the world today, Hulk Hogan passed away at the age of 71. And I know this is a controversial one because of his racial comments that he made at some point. Listen, you can be critical of what he has said and also appreciate what he did for the sports entertainment industry. I mean, listen, say what, like Harrison Butker, for example. I know a lot of you guys do not agree with Harrison Butker and some of his beliefs. Fine. I mean, you have the right to disagree with someone and criticize them for it. But just because you disagree with someone politically or when it comes to social aspects, doesn't mean it takes away from what they do. Harrison Butker is one of the best kickers in the NFL today. No question about it. Man, maybe the best kicker in the NFL right now. I mean, you look at you look at what he's done in the Super Bowl. He has the most field goals made in Super Bowl history and owns the record for longest field goal made in Super Bowl history. But to circle this back to Hulk Hogan, yeah, sure, may have said some things that are strongly frowned upon. Don't disagree with that whatsoever. But this guy 100% really helped put professional wrestling on the map. That match against Andre the Giant, the flip, the leg drop, his heel turn in WCW, being a member of the NWO, one of the most epic factions in professional wrestling history. And then that match against The Rock. Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. Go watch the beginning of that match. Even if you're not a wrestling fan, you can appreciate this. Because they went off the script at the beginning of the match, and instead of getting the match underway, they just stared each other down, and then they just looked into the crowd. Hogan looked at one direction, Rock looked at one direction. And they just took in the moment. That's, of course, in professional wrestling, what a lot of people call a WrestleMania moment. And then The Rock and Hogan, the match they put together, and the crowd reactions in that one, it's an epic match. Hulk Hogan, whether you love him or you hate him, you cannot take away from what that guy did in the industry. I mean, you look at guys in the UFC, like Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, guys who helped put the UFC on the map. That's what Hulk Hogan did for the WWE and pro wrestling as a whole, is help put them on the map. So that, I think, needs to be noted with Hulk Hogan. Two legends we lost. Rest in peace. All right, that'll do it for this edition of the Chief Zone Podcast. My name is Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all for joining me for this episode of the Chief Zone Podcast. One last reminder, tomorrow, 3 p.m. Central Time, the Red Friday Q&A live chat returns. Come with your questions. We'll be live on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Remember, this is not going to be a podcast. This will not be on Spotify or Apple, any of those places. And I'll say this because we did this last year and we'll do it again. Sometimes we had breaking news on a Friday. So we did the Red Friday Q&A live chat in conjunction with the Chief Zone. We may have some of those on occasion as the season goes on. I mean, the news cycle, you guys all know how that works. So we'll do that again if need be as the season goes on. But yes, the Red Friday Q&A live chat returns tomorrow, 3 p.m. Central Time. Once again, I'm Farzin Vasugian. Thank you all for joining me tonight. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. I will talk to you all tomorrow for the Red Friday Q&A live chat. Take care.